Thank you for having me here, and I want to thank the NBA for inviting me to talk. Just a little bit lower here. There we go, get used to this. I wasn't always, should have reversed that order of what I do. 80% or close to 80% of my business is pollination. The rest is then nukes and honey. No. Excuse me. Can I bring this down?
Want to just give you want the portable, Scott?
Right
here, please, the portable. Much easier.
1 second. I gotta see where I'm putting this thing. I live just around here, near Quebec, near the Quebec City area. Usually, when I started beekeeping, it was simple. In '83, we throw the box. I actually started with a package of bees from the States. We throw the bees in the hives in the spring, put boxes down there in the summer, pick up the honey in the fall. That was about it. Then came treacle, then came varroa. Now we're working with hive beetle. I like beekeeping for producing honey, but I figured out over the short term that being in where I am, honey shouldn't be my best value added. So we started pollinating, and from Quebec, we moved the bees down to Montreal. We move each hive 6 times in my business in a year. So we do a lot of driving. We go from Quebec, and we move our hives down for the spring sites near Montreal. Actually, if this was a little bit higher, you can see there's New York, Plattsburgh on this side, and Vermont on the other side. The hive beetles finds that were found in Quebec were on this side, on the New York side. I put my bees along the border on the other side. So we have about a 3 weeks difference in development from here to Quebec. So we remove our hives from the wintering chambers in the spring, bring them down to southern Quebec, and get them developing. We move them onto orchards. Sometimes we put them into sand pits, gravel pits. So they move down there, and around the middle of the month of May, we will take one first load. This is how it was 2 years ago. And we'll bring it right down to St. Stephen's, New Brunswick, on the blueberry producers area. A week or so later, we take another load from this area, and we bring it up to Alma, or Saint-Félicien, in the northern part of Quebec, where they do have blueberries too. 17 days later, we take these bees, and we go right up here, we cross on a ferry. Sorry, I'm shaded, this is far away. We cross on a ferry, we bring them between Forestville and Baie-Comeau, where there are other blueberries. So we do 2 blueberry pollinations in a row. And then to finish this off, we go to Saint-Félicien, and we bring our bees down to Magpie, Mangan, 7 Islands, where this is more or less the extreme limit, northern limit, to blueberry growing in Quebec. 15 days later, we bring this part we here in Forestville, back to Rivière-du-Loup, which is where we put them on a summer prairie. And we take the bees in 7 islands here, Magpie and Mangan, and we bring them back to Quebec and establish them there. So my bees to finish off the year, we just establish them on prairies where they can recuperate and we can work them, prepare them for the following year. We started in 1997, moving bees. In 2017, we had 800 hives in production. We have seasonal employees. We're at 3 farmers markets, and we have 5 employees working in those markets. We tried to go into the retail stores, but we figured it was really a lot of a rat race in there. And when it costs $10,000 to get your product listed, I'd rather go another way. So this is what we did. We sell directly to the client. We have presently two people in production, and we will borrow from time to time when there is a lot of honey coming in. One of those employees on the farmers markets that could go do some extraction for us for our honey, because 800 hives, 2 guys, we're pretty occupied. Well, annual production, we produce around 400 nukes. We pollinate. We do 2 blueberry pollinations, and whatever's left, we'll do apples, strawberries, zucchinis in the summer, and raspberries. We produce all this put together around 90 pounds a hive, of which 20 would be from blueberries and the rest from, I would say, clover and so on and so forth. The objectives we've stated when we started the company was really to maximize the development while minimize the time invested. And I think we all know here, we can spend when we're a beginner, we can spend an afternoon in one hive. But we all know that's not going to pay the bills. So that's one thing we were really put on. Secondly, most beekeeping we do is based more on deduction than confirmation. So, spring management. For about 400 hives per person, we work between 8 and 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. And when we work during the day, it's about 300 hives per team per day, all depending on what we have to do. And the way I worked it out to have about 800 hives for 2 guys is that, not being in the prairies where it's always sunny, we estimate that half the time in Quebec it's going to rain. So you don't want to be in the bees when it's raining. You don't want to get stuck, you just don't want that. So we estimate what we can work in one day, go times 3. And that's how we operate our maximum, we establish the maximum hives we can work. Because obviously, at least 3 days during that week, we'll be able to work in a normal season of the bees. This is in 2016. This is a 1-ton flatbed, and that's my Hummer bee lift. We're loading the bees. This truck holds 108 hives, and as you can see, it's right on the grass. There was a lot of snow that year. We have a lot of snow in Quebec. Usually, anytime like this time of year, we have close to 300 centimeters on the ground. That's besides the rain and the hail that came down too. So there is a lot of snow, and come March, there's even more. What we do usually is we load them up in the spring. Like this, we take them out of the wintering chamber, and we bring them to their spring sites. This is in southern Quebec. And just take a look here. Northern, southern. Okay. Why do I bring bees down south? When we're unloading these hives, and it's done in one way. One guy brings the hives over with the lift and sets them down, and the other guy actually tips the hives forward. He weighs them at the same time. And the fact of tipping the hives forward has 2 actions. First, it tells you if the hive's light. Usually the light hives that get out of the wintering chamber are the strong ones, so those you don't want to lose. And when you usually hit a heavy one, well, usually it's a small colony that just didn't eat enough, so it's blocked in any case. So the first operations we do on the first day we bring them out is one guy unloads, the other one goes around, tips them forward, because there's a little 2x3 in back of the pallet that you can see, and we feed the light and with the heavy ones, and we pick up the dead. This is our wintering. We do winter 1/3 of our operation outside, and it's in the Drummondville area. And we winter 6-way pallets, 1 box high. We tried 2. It might work great out here. It doesn't work great back home. And I think one of the reasons why is that it's a lot of snow back where we are, and as soon as they get buried by the snow, they don't feel the -20s. They don't feel any temperature differential. It seems to stabilize and offer them a better wintering. They survive better. We also found that the mite treatments, when we winter 1 hive, are much more efficient. We would do doubles, and we treat with exactly, back in the day with check mite, we do 4 check mites in a double, and we'd do 2 check mites in a single. And we'd have almost 5% better efficiency in a single than a double. So the quicker we can get those damn mites down, the better season we're going to have next year. And also, it's half the amount of strips, it's half the price. So that too came into the play. 7 days after we take the bees out, what we do, we weigh the hives, go around, weigh it again, and when we feed a hive, we estimate that in the spring, one frame of honey, or feed, is equal to about 7 to 10 days feed. 7 to 10 days of feed. And so that's how we work it out. We go down a second time and third time. We scrape the top bars and the inner cover. And as you can see, we have American transport lids there. They're easier to do, easier to transport the bees. We usually put one strip in for 4 frames of bees and a patty. The patties we use, and we use a lot of different patties, as the global patty, but we spike it. We do a 25% pollen, and we find it's just great. On our second visit, on day 14, we go around this time, and the reason why we wait to day 14 before our second visit to classify the hives is that on the first visit, when we set them down, we don't really open them up. The second time, there's also a lot of drifting between hives. So usually on this visit here, the drifting's pretty much stopped, and we know what we're working with. And also because it's the 14th day. So we go around, we classify our hives from 1 to 10. So we have an idea of the strength of each site. We weigh our hives again, the ones that have our 1 box. Check the pollen patties and we feed. If the patties are gone, we just feed more. And we check the queens by deduction. And this is something I learned a long time ago. And why we check on the 14th day is because on the 14th day after we've taken them out, if the queen started laying 12 days ago, well, there's caproot now, right? So I don't have to see the eggs, I don't have to see the larva. I can see caproot, there's a queen there. I don't have to pull the frame. So you just smoke, usually in the middle of the cluster, and you smoke the bees down. If you see caproot, well, on to the next hive. On that second week, we also take out our double nukes that we made the previous August. Usually the double nukes, how they're made is we take 2 frames of brood, cap brood, and we introduce a queen cell over queen in the month of August, and they'll usually develop into about 4 frames of bees ready for winter in the month of September. Now we winter these, and we move them individually. They're not palletized. I haven't found a good way to palletize those yet. And so when we take them out around my place, and the following day, the second day afterwards, we open them up and we classify them from 1 to 4, being the amount of frames occupied by the bees. Now, as you can see here, there's a cluster, there's a little separating board right in the middle, and we can obviously see those are 2 digs, being that they're 1s or 2s. When we do classify them, the ones that will strike 3 or 4 are then taken down to southern Quebec and left in their double nuke box. And they're left for 1 month down to southern Quebec. And usually, nukes being as they are, they'll have enough energy in their box to develop. And we'll go back down a month later and just change them into a regular hive. But those little guys who will not develop, unless they need help, we take care of. So on our third week, third visit, 21 days, we weigh the hives again and change the pollen patties. We start barrel feeding, one barrel for 50 hives, and we make our 2 queen systems. Now where do we take the nukes to 2 queen systems? Those 1s and 2s that couldn't survive on their own when we took them out of the wintering chamber. What do we make them with? We make them with the 9s and the 10s that we classified that previous week. Now, this is basically what I would call a 10 on our scale. And how we make this double queen system is we put a newspaper followed by a queen excluder. And over that queen excluder, we will put in an inner cover, and we will pierce an ever so slight little hole on the upper side of the inner cover leading to the upper chamber. In that upper chamber, we'll be putting 1 queen frame feeder, and we'll put the nuke in, and we'll fill in the rest with empty frames, drawn empty frames. Fourth week, so then we feed everything, we put the nuke in there, we close it up, and we leave it. Come fourth week, we go around again. We weigh the hives, check the pollen patties, check and feed the queen systems. Usually, about 80 to 90% of the two queen systems we make work. Okay? Some don't. If they don't, what we do is we just remove the queen excluder and the inner cover and set her there because the bottom colony was already strong. So she's just had her second box. We go around after that and we check the other colonies that seem to be stronger. And we will add a brood chamber if they have 9 frames of bees, 6 frames of brood. They can have 8 frames of bees, but it's the 6 frames of brood that's important here to remember. Because when we will equalize later, they have to have that. But usually it's 9-6 is what we find. Add a second brood chamber, and we will at that time unwrap the exterior wintering hives. So we're about the beginning of May. These are how our hives are unwrapped. What we do exactly is we run 6-way pallets, and we put them back to back. There is an airspace. They don't really form a maxi cluster altogether. However, it's the best way we've found of wintering them so far. We do have a relatively good success rate. It's around between 5 and 10%. So it works for us. What we use is a bubble wrap with a metal aluminum foil. And the reason why we use the aluminum foil as on the bubble wrap is that aluminum has the particularity to reflect heat. So when you're putting your hives and wrapping them with metal, aluminum in particular, well, the heat generated by the hives is reflected back on the hives. So it gives them a better chance of just keeping hot in the winter. We finish it off. We don't have any entrance reducers. And we usually lat all 4 corners with just a small lat of wood. Also, when we do close it, I don't know if you notice here, but right here on that slit here, in the beginning we would actually close everything up. And we found there was an enormous amount of water on the covers and on the frames in the spring. So ever since the little slit here, just not finishing off, I guess it has more of a form of an igloo where the heat actually rises and the humidity is not stuck in there. But we don't have any holes besides that in the hive. Fifth visit, weigh the hives, pollen patties, feed 2 queen systems because they are really hungry. If they get going, it's amazing how they can go. I've seen 2 queen systems where we put that were on strong hives, and 1 frame or 2 frames of bees. You come back a week later and they got 5 frames of eggs. It can really explode, but they need a lot of energy to keep that going. We continue adding brood chambers, and what will happen is when it comes to the 2 queen systems, we will check the top one here. If it has 8 frames of bees, we will tip it back and add a second brood chamber underneath so that the space is given for the continued development of the 2 colonies. At this time of year, we're around the 15th or so, 10th to the 15th, and usually New Brunswick, since the southern New Brunswick is a little bit earlier than the north, than Quebec, we will equalize the hives around at 7 frames per brood and prepare them to be sent there. And we will hive our double nukes. Those double nukes in the beginning that we took out of the wintering chamber that had 3 or 4 frames of bees that we just brought down to the south. Well, we will go and then put them into standard brood chambers. Equalizing hives. Equalizing hives. How we do our equalization is as follows. I go through the site where our teams are divided into 2 beekeepers, a lead beekeeper and an apprentice. And the guy who first goes in, opens up, let's say 30% of your operation, your hive site has it's only 1 brood chamber high, the rest are 2. Well, you go by and you open up maybe 10 or 15 small colonies. You look at the bottom and you figure out how many frames of brood you need. Okay, as spoken earlier, we wanted to equalize at 7. Well, we can take as granted that, let's say the colony has 5 frames of bees. I go down, I check the both extremities to see where the brood stops on one side, where the brood stops on the other. I don't check the middle. Because basically, brood chamber, if there's brood here and brood there, there's brood in the middle. So I count how many frames of brood I have. So I got 4 frames of brood. I need 7 frames of bees. 7 frames of brood to make 7. I have 4 frames of brood. I need 3 frames of brood to make 7. Well then, I put the boxes on, and I put the second brood chamber on. I'll take off 3 frames, empty frames out of the second brood chamber. I'll lay them down beside the hive. And we'll do this to 4 or 5 hives in a row, or 10 hives in a row. Then we'll go back and open our 2 box hives, 2 brood chamber hives, and we'll go through, and we'll reduce these 2 brood chamber hives to 1 frame of brood on top. Because we know that the cluster itself, before we added the second brood chamber, already had 6 frames of brood. So then we take the extra frames of brood, and we especially look for cat brood. Because cat brood, for one, all the energy is put into the brood, you have to keep it hot. So there's no increased energy to be brought into it. Secondly, queens don't have the tendency to walk on cat brood. So it reduces the chances of transferring the queens. But still, we are 2 people to check if that frame does have a queen. So I pull the frame out from the stronger colonies, I check both sides for the queen. I don't see the queen, I put it beside the colony, and the second person comes, picks that second brood frame up, checks for the queen. If it's not there, goes to the colony that needs the brood, puts it in, and comes back and puts an empty frame in the donator colony. And that pretty much covers it. At that very same time, market starts. So this is one of our farmers markets in Saint Foy, Quebec. That's my daughter and my mother-in-law. They seem very happy to start their season. We offer all kinds of things. We are with candies now. We sold just honey. Now we got 4 or 5 different types of honey. We got wax candles. We have donuts. We have fudge. We have ice cream. And many products. My wife's all chocolates. So anyway, it's always increasing. The wife's, that's her stuff. So to each his own, as they say. Now, week 6, and this is really when, Brad, do I have a lot of time left?
A little more than 5.
Minutes?
Maybe about 8.
Okay, 6th week, this is where it really starts to get going. We have, we weigh the hives still to one side, if there are any left. Check the pollen patties. We keep feeding them pollen patties all spring. Come cold or hot weather, there's always pollen patties. We separate the 2 queen system. So the original 2 queen system that had the bottom 2, we actually hive the top part and equalize it with another hive to make it as strong. And that second hive out of the 2 queen system on top will go to fill the holes that were left on our 6-way pallets from the dead outs in the spring. And we usually do that just as we're loading up on the first night. Second week, okay, we equalize. That week there, those hives are going to Lac Saint-Jean, so they got to be equaled up to 8 frames of brood, 12 frames of 8 frames of brood, 12 frames of bees. And usually a team can do 200 colonies a day, equalizing up. And we do make nukes. So we start producing our nukes at that time too. One team of 3. Usually we pull my father out of retirement at that time. And we make nukes for resale. The nukes we make are brought back. These are Man Lake nuke boxes, 5 frames. We put 1 empty frame and 1 built frame, and 3 frames of bees, 2 frames of brood, and I made a queen. And we can store them in here 4 to 5 days at 10 degrees Celsius. It's not a problem. If the people then say, look, because often we deal with city folk, and those that don't have time to come and get them or don't have the spaces not ready yet, well, we then just put them outside. And now we're in the month of June, and when they are ready, they just come over at night, plug it up, and they take off with their nuke. Egyptians, transportation. Actually, did you know the Egyptians were the first to actually transport bees? Yeah, they would actually go up and down. They load these hives on the Nile, on their boats, and they'd go up and down the Nile following the flowering season. Okay, process for loading, moving bees. Loading, netting, watering, transportation, and unloading. Within 3 minutes?
Oh, yeah, you've got...
Good, perfect. We do our loading at night, and usually it's either early in the night or early in the morning, but not late in the morning. It causes problems. Our netting, black net. There's a reason for that. And I've had a lot of discussions here.
Scott, you got nearly 10 minutes.
I still have 10 minutes.
Nearly 10. I'll give you 5.
Thank you.
I'll tell you.
Okay. If you're going to move bees, you move bees with a black net. The reason for why you move bees with a black net is that the sun, when it heats the black net, the meshes get hot. Okay? Not underneath gets hot. It's the meshes. And the meshes get hot, they heat the air, surrounding air. And what does hot air do? It rises. So it's by convection, it creates an air circulation. A white net, to the contrary, lets the sun through the hive's heat. Watering. Usually what we do is we load at night, put the net on right away. We water in the morning, and we transport them during the day. And we can go up to 12, 13 hours of transporting like that. And usually we unload at the end of that time. This is me and my father in 2013, before we had the lift. And you can see this, it's a 1-ton truck. We loaded 72 on the 1-ton, 72 in the trailer, 144, here we go. Then, we got the lift. Yeah, here there are 462 hives, but I just want to move back here a sec. Oh, excuse me, whoop. This is me, back in 2013 before I got sick, and I had Herculean shoulders here. You see those? And look what happened to my shoulders. They moved down there. I think it's because of this. This is one of my loads being unloaded in a blueberry fields in northern Seven Islands. There was a small place, so if we don't load over 300 hives on a semi, what we'll do is we'll tell the guy we don't bring the lift up because the lift costs money and it's usage. So usually we can unload these hives with a tractor with forks on, and that's what they're doing there. Okay, blueberry pollination, 18 to 21 days in the fields. You add supers, you unload the bees, you go back, you add supers the second or third day to those hybrids that are stronger. Remove the supers on the 17th and 20th day, and you take brood. In the early days, what we do to take the brood and make nukes was that we drive up with all the nukes on the truck, and the frames went like this, inside nukes. Go to the Lac Saint-Jean or whatever we'd go, to our bees would make the nukes and drive back down, slash, and bring it down. It didn't work well. We'd get on our new sites, we'd put the nukes on the ground, there'd be a lot of bees going from one place to the other. It wasn't nice. What we do now, we get brood chambers, put a screen bottom board, and we go up there in a caravan. And we just take the frames of brood out, put them in these boxes, and we can have them 3 high, put a screen board on the top. And we come back. And then when we get home, we put them in the wintering chamber, again at around 10 degrees Celsius, we let them calm down. The next day we wake up, we go put the nukes where they're supposed to be, come back, get the brood, and everything's open. So you walk around, you take, let's say it's 3 frames of brood, you establish 30 or 40 colonies this way, and you're just walking around with your brood going 3, 3, 3. And the fact that they're cooled down, they're really calm, they don't fly, they're stable, and you just add the queens or the queen cells in, and that's it. And if ever you have trouble, let's say your queens are late or your queen cells aren't coming, well, in those boxes they can stay 3 or 4 days, and they're really calm. So anyway, I found that gave us a lot more maneuverability, and it helped the growing of the business. Oh yeah, that's just a picture. Can we
5, Scott.
Hey?
5.
5, good. Well, I'm almost finished. This is to prove that black net's best. Look, the bees are really calm. This is under a black net right in the middle of summer. It's 28 degrees outside. Those are full colonies. And there is no bearding or whatsoever. We also do queen cells. We raise our own queens that I regretfully have to say I never touch, because my daughter sells them before I can use them. So I actually end up buying queens. But she seems to, my wife and my daughter seem to have a business there. This is basically a queen breeding site. It's 30, we have maybe another 2, but last year was small. This is a site, once we finish the blueberries, we bring them back in Rivière-du-Loup and Quebec. We usually have a holding yard like this. This is not my holding yard, it's the holding yard down in Maine, in the bogs of Maine, when I was with Joni Jacek in 2002. But it looks like that. We unload the truck as quickly as possible. It takes like 45 minutes. We leave the hives like this one day. The following day we go back and we redistribute all the hives in a 40 or 50 mile radius. And this is what the hives look like. Once they're redistributed, boxes on, and they're waiting for their honey flow. This is Rivière-du-Loup. It's a little bit area north of the corn zone. So there's not much corn. And usually there's a very high fall flow for the month of August. And 18 to 24 hives per site, and we hope for the best type of honey we can get. In the fall, what we usually do, beginning of August, right after they come back, when we start taking off honey, we push them down with Beago and push the queens down under a queen excluder in the first box. Then we do our rotation, but by the end of August, this is what they all look like. This is the end. We like took 2 boxes off each that day. Anyway, it looked impressive. And after that, we bring them back to another holding yard and we start feeding them. That's about it. Thank you very much. And I want to encourage you, after Monday 2019, it's the place to be. Thank you.